I contracted HIV from never told me he was infected with HIV. I actually find it quite sad that somebody feels so ashamed or has such a stigma about it that it would interfere with them telling somebody the truth about it.
The stigma of not only contracting HIV, but also the stigma that went along with being raped, that's really confronting for a man. And I just hit a point where I didn't think that I could survive. I couldn't go on. I'm popping handfuls of pills in between drinking, just getting absolutely blind. Basically, I'd overdosed. The emergency services came around, kicked the doors in, and had to resuscitate me because I had, well, let's be brutal, I'd committed suicide.
I've been in a situation where I have, I suppose, judged someone for their status. And all those emotions came flooding back. That shame. And because I had those thoughts, and I know I had those thoughts, I just immediately assumed that other people were going to judge me. I didn't necessarily go out one night, looking to become HIV positive. I'm human. And I got it, and it happened to me.
The fact that HIV is transmitted through sex, I felt, I'm a dirty person for getting it.
That was the first time I, really cut myself since finding out that I was HIV positive. And Mum, just immediately, got a Band-Aid from the cabinet in the bathroom and applied it to my finger without even, worrying about it.
I don't think about getting infected in that way through my contact with my son. I just wanted to help him when he cut his finger, even though he's a big man.
That was really reassuring to me. If I want to sound dramatic about it, that there was nothing wrong with me or that I wasn't sort of a monster.
One of the main messages I would like to see sort of happen within the gay community is to have a more open dialogue between positive and negative men.
Hi, this is Trang, Mia Smith, and Zizhen Huang at Portland State University. The short clip that you just watched is from many HIV-positive people talking about how HIV stigma interferes with their lives. Before getting to understand the stigma and discrimination around HIV/AIDS, we would like to go briefly about HIV history. In 1981, the Center for Disease Control published a weekly report on 5 men in Los Angeles, all of which are suffering from a rare lung infection known as pneumocystis carinii pneumonia. All 5 men also have other unusual infections, suggesting compromised immune system. By publication, 2 have died. By the following day, the Associated Press, the Los Angeles Times, have all covered the story. The CDC is flooded with stories of similar cases from around the nation, as well as report of a rare aggressive cancer. This proved to be the first reported cases of HIV/AIDS in the United States. The CDC established the term Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome, short for AIDS, for the virus previously called GRID, stand for Gay-Related Immunodeficiency Disease. However, public perception has been influenced by the media, and HIV/AIDS have been linked with homosexuality, drug use, and deviant behaviors. By the mid-1980s, HIV/AIDS has infected people from every demographic, including hemophiliacs who acquire the disease through infected blood. However, the pervading myth of HIV/AIDS being a disease of morality, the government does not address the growing epidemic outside of Zizhen announcing, when it's come to preventing AIDS, don't medicine and morality teach the same lesson? Even in the media, HIV/AIDS is portrayed a consequence of more immoral behavior, as this montage of early newscast show.
The disease called AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome, sounds less than deadly, more like a diet pill. AIDS has struck only a reported 1,500 people, but it has killed almost 600 of them, and as yet no one with AIDS has been cured.
Puzzling new disease has appeared the past couple of years that is spreading rapidly among homosexuals, and it is a disease that is fatal.
You are raising the possibility that people are dismissing it because it strikes mostly the gay community?
There is no question in my mind. If this were happening to you in the white, straight, middle-class community, it would have been attended to a long time ago.
Congress wants to know what to do about AIDS. Victims of the disease say the government has done nothing and has no plan to. Committee members were told that victims are often gay men or IV drug users, groups already discriminated against.
Now it's 7:17 with a question. Is the deadly disease AIDS now a health threat to the general population?
The government today tried to reassure people that there's no evidence AIDS is breaking out into the general population. Assistant Secretary for Health, Edward Brandt.
What's important is that there is no reason for panic among the general public.
Kills people. It petrifies me because girls be hanging out with them. And one night they could be in the club having fun with their gay friend and give them a little kiss and go home with that AIDS on their lips.
This taped concert aired on cable systems last month. Predictably, it did not receive rave reviews from the gay community. In protest, this record store in San Francisco's Castro district will no longer stock Eddie Murphy tapes and records. Murphy's manager says he's not anti-gay, but anti-AIDS.
The gay plague, as AIDS has been called, is the center of a political storm. The moral majority claiming AIDS is God's punishment for the gay lifestyle.
All this media attention and sympathy for these AIDS victims just really bothers me. Let's call a spade a spade. AIDS is a venereal disease, and the vast majority of its victims are a group of abnormal people with a very strange and unusual lifestyle.
Cleve Jones and Mark Ostfield are homosexual, both victims of an increase in anti-gay violence that many contend is being fueled by fear of AIDS. That's what happened to Charles Howard, a 23-year-old homosexual from Bangor, Maine. He was attacked, pushed over a bridge, and drowned.
Parents were afraid 3 brothers, Ricky, Robert, and Randy Ray, all hemophiliacs, would spread the AIDS virus they got from blood products. The Rays left Arcadia after their home burned in a suspicious fire.
As time progresses, public perception of HIV/AIDS leads to direct discrimination of those suffering from the disease. Children are expelled from school. Foreign travelers diagnosed with the disease are not allowed to enter the United States, and Congress passes an amendment banning the use of HIV material that promote or encourage homosexual behavior, effectively barring safe-sex campaign aiming at the gay community and preventing homosexuals from obtaining the information they need to prevent transmission of this deadly disease. Activist groups begin forming around the nation, many with a similar message: silence equals death. They stage protests, advocate for new policy from drug makers, provide social support for those living with HIV/AIDS and their allies, and perhaps most important, force the government to acknowledge the epidemics of HIV/AIDS. ACT UP become very vocal in the fight against AIDS, staging demonstrations across the country, and they begin to see success.
If I'm dying from anything, I'm dying from the fact that not enough rich, white, heterosexual men have gotten AIDS for anybody to give a shit. All I read in the newspapers tells me that the mainstream heterosexual population is not at risk for this disease. All the newspapers I read tell me that IV drug users and homosexuals still account for the overwhelming majority of cases and those at risk. AIDS is a test of who we are as a people. Fight back! Dying from anything.
Despite the valiant effort of HIV activists and organizations, the epidemic is still largely ignored throughout the 1980s and into the early 1990s. In 1994, it's become the leading cause of death on Americans across all demographics, aged 25 to 44. a constant stream of myth and misinformation surrounding the AIDS epidemic. For the most part, the public is grossly misinformed on how HIV is spread and who is at risk. The stigma of HIV is often quoted as being a real killer, as it caused the disease to be ignored until it has reached epidemic proportions, infections and killing hundreds of thousands before it publicly addressed by our government. Women living with HIV are especially vulnerable to discrimination because of the stigma associated with the disease, as well as their race, gender, and class status. Women reporting HIV discrimination has higher mean score for stress, suicide, depression, and numbers of unprotected sexual behaviors. Also, they had lower score for self-esteem and quality of life. This number is especially high in African American. The finding indicated that HIV discrimination adversely affects women's mental, sexual, and physical health. Today, HIV treatment has improved significantly, allowing people living with AIDS to live longer and healthier lives. New treatments are constantly being developed to treat and even prevent HIV infection. HIV/AIDS organizations have multiplied across the country, with many urban areas having centers for diagnosis, treatment, and social support. The United States now spread approximately $30 billion a year on HIV treatment and research. In a study in 2009 found out that the stigma of HIV infection negatively affects the lives of people living with HIV/AIDS. Among all participants, 1/3 reported high level of stigma, 77% reported poor access to care, and 10% reported no regular sources of HIV care. Despite the Americans with Disabilities Act being passed in 1990 and expanded to include people living with AIDS, people today are still routinely dismissed from jobs and prosecuted for crimes based on their HIV status. Several notable organizations have been formed to protect people living with AIDS from discrimination and unjust prosecution, but discrimination still exists, thanks to the stigma and lack of education surrounding the virus. Not until we can educate people about HIV, the stigma and discrimination won't go away.
Fair singing out Proud Mary as she cruises Christopher Street and some southern.
You are listening to Lou Reed's song on HIV because he's a famous bisexual who was given electrical shock therapy as a child to cure his gay tendencies. He is also a famous New Yorker where so much of the HIV/AIDS revolution happened. Thank you for listening. Let's have a better understanding about the disease and start educating other people as well.
There's a Crawford Davis and a tacky Cary Grant, and some homeboys looking for trouble down here from the Bronx. But there ain't no Harry, no Virgin Mary. You won't hear those voices again. And Johnny Rio and Rotten Rita, you never see those faces again. It's Halloween.